Welcome back for another episode of Banging the Can, the Houston sports podcast that does not apologize for championship rings and tings, presented by Bolen Media. I am your host, Ross Bolen, and we have a lot to discuss, so I'm not going to dick around today. Let's just get right into it. Last night, the 2022 NBA draft took place, and man, it did not go as expected. In some miraculous turn of events, maybe not so miraculous if you were pro Paolo, Banchero went number 1 to the Orlando Magic. Chet went number 2 to the OKC Thunder, and Auburn's Jabari Smith, projected to go first pretty much since the draft lottery, fell to our Houston Rockets at number 3. Rafael Stone and the Rockets got a gift here, in my opinion. Paolo may very well be the best immediate NBA addition that was in that draft. But I just couldn't get excited about him the same way I can get excited about Jabari and his ceiling. And I don't know, maybe, I had a lot of y'all listeners hollering at me telling me how wrong I was about Paolo. And maybe I am wrong. But for our team and for where we're at with our rebuild, I just wasn't that excited about Paolo. So I was excited about what happened last night because I believe Jabari will be an immediate contributor on the defensive side of the ball in a way that Paolo maybe couldn't, which we badly need. He's more athletic. He's got a higher NBA ceiling in my eyes, in my very unprofessional opinion. He's a good shooter to boot, and now he's super pissed off he didn't go number 1. So he has a massive chip on his shoulder. How is pairing that with Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. not exciting? Not to mention Alperen Şengün and Tate and Gary Bird and all the other young pieces we've got that are still developing. I mean, the Rockets also ended up drafting LSU forward Tari Eason with the 17th pick. Then we traded the 26th pick to Minnesota for number 29 and a pair of second-round picks. We used the 29th pick to draft point guard Ty Washington from Kentucky. Tell me rooting for a guy named Ty isn't going to be fun. So I know there was a lot of confusion, even disappointment for fans who were completely sold on Paolo Banchero, whose name I have mispronounced for months now and been saying Banchero. But look, the Rockets have hit on dudes that would have been seen as perfectly acceptable number 1 picks in back-to-back drafts. And for a franchise that hasn't rebuilt in fucking forever, things are going pretty freaking well. All right, you can't have too much young potential superstar talent at this stage of the rebuild, regardless of what position said talent might play. We are in a great spot. All right, that being said, pump the brakes. I know it's exciting. I know we're having fun again. I know things are looking up. We've got a positive future, but we are not going to the playoffs next season. Keep that in mind. We don't even want to go to the playoffs next season. Keep that in mind. Okay? We're still rebuilding. Everybody needs to keep their heads on straight, keep their expectations for the squad at an acceptably rational level. All of that now being said, welcome to the squad, Jabari, Tari, and Ty. Today's episode is brought to you by Felix Gray Glasses. 5 years ago, Felix Gray set out to create perfect eyewear that would improve daily screen time, and since then, Felix Gray has been on a mission to create a better relationship with technology. Felix Gray lenses filter 15 times more blue light that can make screen time tough on eyes and disruptive to sleep even. I've been working on the internet for over a decade, all right? Spending like 10 hours a day staring at screens. My eyes get worn the hell out. And when I'm done with work, I like to relax by watching sports on TV, which obviously involves even more, much larger screens. So a few years ago when I was introduced to Felix Gray, everything changed. These glasses are the quality of designer frames. It's not some cheap blue light coating painted over them that's going to chip off. That never happens. There's no chipping, no cheapness, just incredible quality designer frames that are stylish and functional as they protect your eyes from all the blue light that screens we rely upon emit. There's no cutting back from screen time if you're like me, but you can do your eyes a solid and get yourself some Felix Grays to relieve yourself from those headaches, from the dry eyes, blurry vision, and what have you that occurs over the course of your workday. I've got like 6 pairs now, but my favorite frames for y'all to check out from Felix Gray are the Faraday, the Nash, and the West. Just visit felixgrayglasses.com/thecan to support the show and get free shipping, free returns, and free exchanges. They've got non-prescription and prescription available. Check them out now. felixgrayglasses.com/thecan. That's FELIXGRAY glasses.com/thecan. Free shipping, free returns, free exchanges. felixgrayglasses.com/thecan. Now, while we welcome the new guys, Christian Wood has been shipped. And I haven't really talked about that yet. And frankly, it's because I don't have much to say. I didn't like dude. He gave me bad vibes. He had bad juju. Look, he was obviously a negative influence on Kevin Porter Jr. I'm glad he's gone. And I'm glad we got some value back for him while there was still value to be had. If you haven't noticed, his reputation league-wide prior to coming to the Rockets was already a little dodgy. It was like, wait, why is this guy not talked about more or more well-known when he's as productive as he is on occasions on the court? And the answer is because he's kind of a shit teammate and sort of a toxic presence in the locker room and a complainer and a little bitch. So, yeah. No, I was never really fond of Christian Wood. C. Wood, cool nickname. Got some good moves. The days he was checked in and actually trying really hard, he was awesome. But he had a lot of, melodramatic tendencies, bro. He was checking out and taking plays off and games off and halves off and quarters off, fairly regularly. And, so my favorite moment of the Christian Wood era was when he got traded. In other shitty guy, former Houston sports star news, attorney Tony Busby announced 20 of 24 lawsuits filed against Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson settled out of court. We all knew the day would come when at least some of these would get, taken care of by Deshaun outside of court. What that means is he paid money. It's what they put it in all these pretty words, but really what it means is Deshaun Watson paid 20 of 24 people to go the fuck away. That's what happened. And you don't think he offered all 24? Nah, 4 of them said nah. So 20 were like, yeah, that's enough money. And it was probably a lot of money. I mean, some of the things he did to these women were expensive. If you get caught and didn't get permission to do them. He was doing bad shit is my point. Stuff that you'd have to pay a lot of money to get somebody to forget about or walk away from in terms of getting you your due punishment. So, Busby, quote, by the way, coming here, Ashley Solis is one of the heroes of this story. Her case has not been settled, and thus her story and that of the other 3 brave women will continue. I look forward to trying these cases in due course, consistent with other docket obligations in the court's schedule, Tony Busby said, because he noted that Ashley Solis, the first woman to file a lawsuit against Deshaun Watson and the first to speak publicly and identify herself as a plaintiff, is not one of the 20 women to settle. It's interesting to me that Busby is able to publicly comment on, these are all his clients, right? And he's calling Ashley a hero and the other one's brave for not settling, which is calling the other ones who did settle, who he's still representing and getting paid by, the opposite, right? Or at the very least, acknowledging that they weren't brave and brave enough to turn down the money. And it's just this bizarre situation where he's kind of sneak dissing 20 women who settled out of court when he's praising the other 4, which is obviously the other 4 deserve praise. I'm not saying they don't, but I don't know necessarily that we need to be knocking the 20 who took what I assume in some instances is going to be life-changing money. Not like a year's salary, like years and years and years, and maybe even in some cases a lifetime worth of money. I mean, we don't know. That's the piece of the puzzle that's going to be undisclosed, and that maybe it'll take years before we get some, but there will be leaks, obviously, at some point. And not just on the legal side of his situation, on the professional side of his situation, where things are also really weird with the NFL and whether or not he's going to be suspended. But look, while obviously 2 grand juries have declined to pursue criminal charges against Deshaun Watson, he's still got issues. He's got 4 women who are holding out. in civil court. He's got more lawsuits continuing to come in every week. The NFL is investigating whether he violated their code of conduct. They interviewed him in person last month as part of their investigation. At their spring meeting, Goodell said that he thought the NFL was nearing the end of its investigation, but that he couldn't give a timeline for when a ruling might be made on Deshaun. From Mike Florio on Pro Football Talk, the NFL Players Association, and Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson reportedly were discussing the terms of a negotiated suspension under the personal conduct policy. Those talks reportedly fell apart. It's not believed they'll be put back together. That was like this week. So the most recent thing is that he actually met with the NFLPA, the Players Association, and the NFL, and attempted to come up with some type of negotiated suspension under the personal conduct policy. I'm assuming to start getting some of this punishment out of the way, get it done as a part of this next season, right? Continuing back to Mike Florio on Pro Football Talk, per a league source, the current expectation is that the NFL will propose a suspension on Watson, that the case will proceed to arbitration as a result, with the disciplinary officer presiding, and Commissioner Roger Goodell would then have final say over any appeal filed by either side. So, excuse me, that's what we're looking at coming down the pipeline in the Deshaun Watson situation that is not improving for either him or the Cleveland Browns on a day-to-day basis, which, look, it's a weird thing to have to keep up with because it's not good. Just there's nothing positive about this story. There's nothing fun about this story. I mean, we're talking about sexual assault here and by a guy who was once the promised one, almost the chosen one of Houston sports for many Houston and many Texans fans. It's a mess, man. It's an embarrassing, terrible debacle. And it's not even close to over. That's the worst part. This has been going on for fucking ever at this point. And it's not even close to done. So we're going to continue to have to hear about Deshaun, and it's something that as Texans fans, and as a former, I was a huge fan of the dude when he first got here to Houston. And I feel like he completely betrayed me on top of committing actual horrific crimes, potentially. So it's something that I feel obligated to pay attention to and continue to talk about, and as such, I will continue to do so. And I'm happy to hear any feedback. Any of y'all's takes on any of this stuff, anything we ever talk about on the show, I want to hear your feedback on social media. Holler at me at WRBolen on Twitter and Instagram. Those are the two places I spend the most time. I tweet a lot at WRBOLEN on Twitter, also on Instagram. But yeah, also on any of the Banging the Can accounts. We're on TikTok at Banging the Can, Instagram at Banging the Can, Twitter at Banging the Can. You're picking up a pattern here, I would presume. But we do a lot here at my company, Bolen Media. As I mentioned, that's the company that produces our show, Banging the Can. We also do a comedy show called The Ross Bolen Podcast that I host with my co-host, Jared Borislow. And then he does his own show. It's an F1 podcast called Formula Bone, the F1 show. And it's the Formula Bone F1 show, available wherever you listen to Banging the Can, and the Ross Bolen podcast is also available wherever you listen to Banging the Can, or you can watch on YouTube. Formula Bone F1 show is massive on TikTok. It's got like 150,000 followers, big part of Bolen Media. If you love F1, you will love Formula Bone, at Formula Bone. Just put the B in front of the O on Formula 1. It's Formula Bone. Bone like the bone you give your dog. The dude's name that hosts it's Jared Borislow, nicknamed J-Bone. That's the explanation as far as I can give it for you. We also have the upcoming first Game of Thrones spinoff. It's called House of the Dragon. Well, I used to host the #1 Game of Thrones podcast in the world, and we are now going to be covering House of the Dragon on that podcast when it starts at the end of August. It's called Oysters, Clams, and Cockles. Go listen, again, wherever you listen to Banging the Can. Appreciate y'all. Thanks for being here. Go to bolenmedia.com to check out our company, bolenmedia.com/shop to grab yourself some Banging the Can merch. We've got a t-shirt. We've got a dad hat. Represent on the streets of Houston. Tell all your Houston friends and family about Banging the Can. I'm Ross Bolen. Again, I appreciate you very much for spreading the word about my show, what we're doing here, and my company as a whole. Until next time, H-Town, stay down.